Okay, this is going to be a recording for the abstract colour assignment. The first thing you'll need to do is get 3 pieces of card paper. I just got a poster board and cut them up into 3 pieces. The reason why you need board is because you're going to be doing a couple of layers on this, and the paper, just copy paper, is not going to be thick enough. You can try it on copy paper, but I'm just going to tell you right now, you will probably get holes on the copy paper, so I wouldn't use it if I were you. A poster board will be fine, any sort of card will be fine. The first step we need to do is, I'm going to line them all up because they all need to be similar. I showed you the presentation, and they all have to be somewhat the same. I've just got a wet cloth, and I am going to wet all of my pieces, not super saturated, just slightly damp. You may find that your picture will curl up like that, so just make sure you get something to hold it down, okay? And what you're going to do is all 3, because you're making a body of work, they all are going to be related. You need to treat the background somewhat similarly. So I've got my watercolors here. Let's see, you can see them there. There we go, I'll just use that to hold that down. And my paper is wet, and I'm going to use the same colors. I probably am going to stick to like an analogous color scheme, one's close on the color wheel. And with the watercolor, remember, you want to make sure that you've got some water inside your little wells. So I'm going to just stick to pinks and purples for this. There's no rules. I just want to keep the background kind of not crazy. You can do what you want. I want you to be creative, but I also, the background is the background. It's not the everything. All right, you might have to wet this a couple of times. All right. So once I've massaged my watercolors, then I'm going to just drop color in however I decide to do it. I wish I had a bigger brush for this. And whatever I do on this one, I'm going to do something similar on this one. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. If you want them to join up, like the ones that I showed you, you can certainly make them join up, but you don't have to. All right. I'm just doing basic lines on this one. I do want the watercolor to blend in. See, I'm already starting to get a little bit of beading happening with the paper, so if that happens, you don't want to overwork the paper. Alright, I'm going to pause this. Okay, so however you decide to do this, you just need to apply the same kind of application across the board, okay? I like to put water down first, because if you don't put water down first, it's going to come out like this, okay? All right, and I like it to bleed, all right, because if you have it bleeding, then you can do a lot more cool stuff. Now you can do this sort of thing and just kind of let it go into each other. There's no rules on this assignment, except for the very few that I have, which would be just that you have to have a background and color on top. But however you decide to do that, that's completely up to you. All right. I might want to add, you don't want to add too much water, because if you add too much water, it will, disintegrate the paper. I'm just kind of doing a section at a time. I started off with lines, but now I think I'm just going to keep going just with these basic colors. and I'm doing it over all three. So that's what you need to do for the first part of this. Do this in the first lesson, and do them all at the same time. All right? Do them all at the same time. Okay, one of the things I noticed on my card was the beading. Okay, the beading of the paper. I'm not sure if you can see that. If you start getting like chunky chunks from the paper come up, that means it's too wet. You need to stop working on that if it's too wet, and just let it dry and try and scrape some of that chunky chunk off. If the paper starts to bead up into tiny little balls, that means you're overworking the paper, and that's very possible. It's easy to do that with card or anything that's not watercolor, so just don't put too much water on at once. You can always come back to it. Make sure that your paper is, try and look after the paper. Once you have a base, you can also like splat paint on it. Like one of the ways that you can do it is if you stand up, you can just get kind of quite a bit of ink on your page and kind of just drop it on. That can make some really interesting patterns. Usually what we do is we do it with a spray style, but if we're doing remote, we can do it this way too. You can still get that cool splatter paint, and you can also pick your paper up and let it drip. That can look really cool. I don't know if you can see that. You can't really see that. See how that's dripping? So for example, if I put another layer on, okay, and we got a lot of color in there. You can just pick that paper up and let it drain down. See how that is draining down now? That can look really cool too. Alright, so you just need to get a base going. I do like the way that looks. I may hold that up for a little while. Okay, so I'm just going to put these to the side to dry. They have to be completely dry before we start, and I'm going to do some more examples of just different types of ways to apply the watercolor. Okay, now I'm going to try it with the copy paper. I'm very nervous about doing it with the copy paper because copy paper is so thin. But maybe if you didn't go over it so much, it would be okay. See, it's already starting to puddle up. Now that can look cool. I'm not totally discrediting it, but just be aware of the thin paper. Also, mixing, if you go across the color wheel, you will make brown. Okay, so if you stick to one side of the color wheel, you'll have less brown issues, but brown can be cool too. If you do decide to use watercolor and you do have these puddles, Don't pick it up, just let it dry. You might have to let it dry overnight. Just put it in a spot where the puddles can dry. If the puddles really are too much, just start again, because too much puddles is not going to be a problem. But just little puddles like this, even like this, is okay. You can pick up a little bit of water if you need to, but it does actually look pretty cool if you have some of those indentations in there. All right, I'm doing one now just purely with splatter. The problem with this one is it takes a while because you've got to color most of the white back. I'm also using kind of neutral colors, so it's kind of turning more to your organic style, but that's cool too. Okay, so you have to wait, they have to be completely dry before you go to the next stage, so that may actually be the next day. These are ones that I did earlier before, but I'm actually going to make a second video for those so I can use the ones that are drying now, and we can draw on top of them. Okay, the first layer of color is simply the background. You are not, that is not the final product, that is simply just a background. Okay, so the next video will show you how to do the fun part.